Ian Schieffelin just went from Elite Eight to tight end. Clemson's basketball player is joining Dabo Swinney's football team. This is not a drill, and it's all coming up right now on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You know how we do it here on Locked On. You get exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday every single week. And don't forget to follow me in between episodes over on X at the Morgan T Show, where we can talk about all things Clemson whenever and however you want. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about that big news that's all over Clemson social media, and that is Ian Schieffelin switching to football. And then we'll bring it into some more football talk and continue to get into some analytics around Clemson's football team and the schedule that's coming up and how tough it may be for 2025. And then also I'm going to wrap it up with a little bit of recruiting. I noticed some message boards talking about a specific player that's out there that hasn't been offered yet. And I wanted to take a look at him as well. While we get into it, before we get into it, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money. All right. So Ian Schieffelin, when I looked at this, I didn't really understand, because I was like, is this really happening? Now we know that he entered into the transfer portal because he was looking to have another year of eligibility, and be able to play what I thought basketball again for Clemson or for any other team in case Clemson had moved on. He entered into the transfer portal and he had he had already played 4 seasons, but there was a lot of legislation out there to be able to possibly allow him to have a 5th year of eligibility. But it seems as if, per some sources out there, that he may be making the move in the offseason. And this is on TigerNet. It's on social media, on X. People that are reputable names that are saying this on Clemson 24/7, that Ian Schieffelin is joining the football team as a tight end in 2025. Now, 4 seasons as a really good power forward under Brad Brownell. He's a rebound monster, scrappy, physical, not going to always lead the team in points by any means, but I think night in and night out, he was going to give you 100% effort, 110% maybe coming up in the football field. And then, that he was going to be scrappy on the boards. He was going to probably lead the team in rebounds and probably have some double doubles or triple doubles if he had assists and blocks out there. So this is a guy who was a defensive master. And he obviously had good hands and good high pointing ability and good judgment of the ball in the air, because you wouldn't be able to have those things if you weren't good at rebounding. I mean, if you were good at rebounding, then you would have those things. And so we've seen multi-sport athletes before. Typically it's football to baseball, or some sort of quarterback, shortstop or quarterback pitcher type combo. I don't know if we've really seen a ton of football to basketball outside of DeAndre Hopkins. I remember when I was in college, he went and played, and I went and watched him play, on the hardwood there. I believe that was for Oliver Purnell back then, but it was still kind of weird to see him. He actually wasn't that bad. It was long enough ago to where that's when they were wearing long basketball shorts that, I believe DeAndre Hopkins had shorts that went all the way down to his ankles. That's how long ago that was. But I'm used to more basketball or more football, baseball relationship than basketball, football. It is pretty rare to me. Tight end also seemingly rare, but it seems like Ian Schieffelin can do that at 6'8", 240 pounds. You already know he's very athletic. You know that he's going to be a scrappy guy. You know he's going to be physical. Can he get open in space? Now, does he have the ability to do that and play that position, or is this kind of like, reaching for something that they've never done? Well, actually, no. In high school, he played multiple positions and could even play quarterback at Grayson, with Phil Maffa. So Dabo Swinney has always kind of bragged on him over the years and felt like Ian Schieffelin could play any position in football just because of how athletically talented he was. Tight end actually kind of works out, in my opinion. I mean, when I think about a player going to tight end, you think about like Tim Tebow moving over to tight end. That didn't really work too well. He didn't really want to get into the trenches. He'd rather be a quarterback. He didn't really block very well. And I don't think while he was an extremely aggressive runner as a quarterback, on the line of scrimmage, not so much. But I think maybe Ian Schieffelin can definitely do that. You got to have somebody you can trust to block. And he's blocked some really big dudes at his time at Clemson. Now, were they big as, defensive ends or big as outside linebackers? I don't know if the relationship there is a 1-for-1 by any means. And I'm kind of curious why this is such a big deal now. And maybe it's because the tight end room that is currently there is not as strong as we maybe once thought. Jake Brenningstool is no longer there. Marcus Dixon moved over to defense now. So those are two guys that you had in the previous year that you don't have now for that position. Olsen Pat Henry showed a lot of promise last season. I think that he's definitely somebody that you could trust as a tight end number one. Is he continuing to grow at the pace that they're looking for? Is he beating out a guy who's really hasn't played football for a few years? I would hope so. So it kind of gives me a little bit of a question mark. Is this a gimmick? Is this just to make headlines, or is this for real? And if it is, are the guys that are, been consistent at the tight end position not performing or improving? That makes me a little bit nervous there. Olsen Pat Henry to me was the guy coming in number one, and then Josh Sapp number two. I felt like those guys would be guys that you could definitely trust. Josh Sapp is a guy who has been able to get open and get out in space and get lost in the zone and make some big plays over the past last season. So I kind of had a lot of confidence in Josh Sapp, a lot of confidence in OPH. So it kind of is a little bit of a head scratcher, especially knowing that they're bringing in Christian Bentancur, who everybody in the recruiting world was really high on and how well he could do. Now, he is very young and new to the program and new to college football. So we don't really know what we're going to get out of him. We haven't seen him yet, but maybe it is a depth thing. And I don't know how much they actually will use Ian Schieffelin if he does get to the point where he can be in the mix. But it does seem like that they have an opportunity to fill a spot there, finally kind of making Dabo Swinney's dreams come true to bring in a guy from another sport. This may be the first time that I know of from a Clemson standpoint where a basketball player has gone to football. I know baseball, again, to football, but basketball to football, I've seen it the other way around. So very, very interesting. Is it a true thing? Is it a rumor? Is it real? I don't know. As far as I can tell, it seems very real. So we have to kind of prepare for that. It could be just a 1-year experience that maybe just has a lot of upside and potential because of his size and his hands and his confidence. But fall camp's going to be critical if he can get in and be a part of the program. If he figures out how to do his blocking assignments correctly, and if he can figure out the playbook fast enough, maybe, just maybe, he actually can be a jump ball red zone threat, a one-on-one destroyer. And just somebody, a lot of times, if you've noticed, like Lenore Sellers, for example, he wasn't the best quarterback that beat Clemson, but he's just extremely confident in what he could do. And if you were going to let him do what he wants to do, then he was going to take it all day. Maybe Ian Schieffelin could be a guy like that, where he just says, hey, you know what? You're going to give me one-on-one out here? You're going to pretend like I don't know what I'm doing? I'm going to go here and I'm going to high point this ball and take it from you. Then like it's a rebound in basketball. Dabo could be betting on a big-time upside here. And you know what? I know he likes projects. He's not going to get very many walk-ons anymore because of the new rules. So maybe this is his version of bringing in a walk-on project to see what he can do with it and see how much success he can have with it. From the Elite Eight to Death Valley, Ian Schieffelin, can he cook on the football field? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Coming up next, I'm going to get into Clemson's schedule and give you my thoughts on toughest to easiest in 2025. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I told you about this already, but man, I realized just how much money I was spending on eating out. And now I budget smarter, I save more. And plus, if you have a spouse, if you have a partner, whatever, you're sharing a personal accounts, you're setting goals together, and you're on the same page with this app. It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. So go check it out. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, so I wanted to get into Clemson's 2025 schedule. I do feel like that this year is going to be a little bit of a beast, considering from last season. I think that this schedule has gotten a little bit more tough, more difficult, if you will, for 2025. But as I'm saying that this schedule is tough, I also want to say that I feel as if that this team can rise to the occasion and they can definitely meet or exceed expectations for sure. And I don't know if this is kind of like a quick glance. I did not really go into too much on statistics or history or returning players. I just kind of like looked at it and felt like, okay, this is my gut feeling. And it probably will change as we do this in the offseason to kind of figure out where Clemson lies and where the difficulty lies the most. I do feel like, as I said earlier this week, that November really looks pretty tough to me for Clemson. When you look at who they have to face and the fact that they're going to have to face, multiple teams at their home instead of in Clemson. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for the Tiger. Any away game in college football is definitely difficult. So I'm going to go down the list here, and I will go from, let's say, toughest to easiest. And you can tell me what you think. If you think I'm crazy, you can go over on X at the Morgan T Show and tell me how crazy and ridiculous I am for this. Or if you agree with me, you can let me know as well over on YouTube on the comments. I love and appreciate getting all your feedback. So I think the easiest game, and we'll just get this one out of the way. In my true Morgan fashion, I just told you I was going to go with the toughest, and now I'm giving you the easiest. But Furman, to me, is the easiest game. November 22nd at a home game, probably the military appreciation. Or wait, no, that'll be the senior day, right? And I guess military appreciation will be Florida State. So anyways, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking that wrong. Maybe Furman will be military appreciation. But either way, it is a tune-up game for South Carolina. And I think that that's not going to be a difficult game. They'll just have to kind of go through that. Maybe it's purple on purple, considering if they do military appreciation and the senior day all in one. I don't know. Purple on purple. See, maybe it'll work. Might be really fun to have a purple versus purple team. I don't know how close the purple for Furman is to Clemson, though. It'd be kind of weird if they were really close. But anyways, they have white they can wear. So Furman definitely the easiest, and just a tune up for South Carolina. You don't really want to stress over that game. You don't really want to get anybody injured. You really want to get some guys some reps, and just wait until you head into South Carolina for an away game on November 29th, which is actually my most difficult game of the season. I know that South Carolina has lost a couple of players in the transfer portal, and some starters, some backups. So I don't know exactly how they will shape out for 2025, and it'll be at the end of the season, so a lot could change from now till then. But to me, nothing is bigger, badder, and more stressful as a Clemson fan than the rivalry game, hostile environment. The Gamecocks are cocky, if you will, because they come off from beating Clemson 2 times in a row at home. They haven't had much success at their home. I think now losing like 10 or 11 or 12 games in a row against Clemson at home. So the home series hasn't been very good for South Carolina and the Gamecocks, but they have to be confident. They know that Lenore Sellers can kind of run all over Clemson, at least last year's Clemson. Maybe, just maybe, that Clemson will be hitting on all cylinders at the end. That will be the hope, is that you'd be in that championship phase where South Carolina will just kind of get blown away. But it is a away game. It is a rivalry game, and there's not a ton that you can really say for certain because of all that. Second most difficult game or toughest game for Clemson in 2025 has got to be the other November game that is stacked up with Furman. So it's kind of the tough game schedule sandwich, if you will. Louisville at Louisville, a Friday night game in Louisville, and it is got everything and more to be a trap game. They're just coming off the Florida State game, which is kind of a big crapshoot. You really don't know what you're going to get from that. But middle of November, Louisville at their house, and they want to get a win because they feel like they've been robbed. I told you this last season that you got to watch out for Louisville because their fans are hungry for a win against Clemson, and it happened in Death Valley, and they're still hungry for a win against Clemson at Louisville, and they're really, really looking for sure. Going on the road against that Louisville squad is going to be difficult. Their offense is going to try to run all over Clemson again. I think they're going to still try with the same game plan all over again. And being it is a away game, so you have a away game, home game, and away game at the end of November. That to me is an extremely stressful point for Clemson because it's towards the end of the season. You don't know where you'll be injury-wise. You don't know where you'll be, just maybe not so much injury, but just fatigue-wise. And, you could be trying to prepare yourself for the postseason and not give your, 1,000% effort on these games because you got to live to fight another day. And that's where these longer schedules come into play, these postseason schedules come into play, where you're starting to try to manage the health of your team instead of just going out there and letting them play. So I think that to me is an extremely difficult November. We've already mentioned this, but November as a whole, I think are some of the most, or really the most difficult month overall. The next most difficult game for me would be SMU, because even though it's at home, I do think that they're coming in with a lot of anger towards what happened in the ACC championship game. They're going to want to get revenge, and they're still going to play extremely fast, and that flustered Clemson. Clemson just luckily got ahead with a huge lead, but SMU slowly started to chip away at that as the game went on, to the point where they almost ended up winning the game. And so Clemson has to be aware of the fact that they want to get revenge in that game. So that is a mid-October, October 18th game at Clemson. I assume that they will have a good chance of being ranked as well. So any kind of ranked matchup where you're looking for kind of payback from what happened with Clemson being the ACC spoiler in 2024 is going to be difficult. I could have put Florida State and Duke, but as I was kind of thinking about it a little bit more, that Georgia Tech game away to me is going to be tricky, because if you think about it, that Georgia Tech team should have beat Georgia. Really, they should have beat Georgia, a playoff caliber team. They should have beaten. Now, what will this team look like versus last team? I get it. It's going to be completely different in a lot of aspects, but I'm just looking at it kind of like ones that I don't want my team to kind of overlook. And that's kind of where I'm at with these tough schedules here. So you've got all of November in my top 6, and then I'm throwing in SMU and Georgia Tech as a September, October game that are very difficult. And then I had Syracuse, with Fran Brown. I know that they're probably going to want a little bit of payback. They're going to want to cash that check that they allowed to, or get their loan back, I guess, because they beat Miami to let Clemson into the ACC championship game. So Syracuse, they're coached really well, so you got to be careful with them. North Carolina, not too concerned with. It seems like Bill Belichick and his weird girlfriend scenario is getting worse by the minute. And then the end of the schedule, I know that what you're thinking. I haven't really said LSU, and I don't really know how I feel about LSU yet, because it's a home game. It's the beginning of the season. There's going to be a lot of hype with it. I feel like the crowd is going to be extremely into it, and it's going to make LSU's day very difficult. I feel like that the more I think about that game, I think that they're going to get a heavy dose of the real Death Valley, and they're going to be shocked. And we already know what their coach does when he comes to Death Valley and he has a deer in the headlights moment. And we already know they're going to play us tough, but it's also a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, or kind of, I don't know. I'm a little bit kind of like, I don't want to give the SEC team, both SEC teams, that much credit. I really don't, because you know what's going to happen? The national media is going to give LSU, oh man, they're going to act like LSU is just the greatest team ever, because they're in the SEC and everything is just perfect about them. So I'm not really willing to give LSU anything. And plus, I think they're going to come to Memorial Stadium and get a nice little wake-up call from the Clemson faithful out there. And can Clemson win 11 games, 12 games? I think if Cade Klubnik keeps progressing and the defense really is at the aggressive level that we need them to be, I think it's extremely possible that Clemson would be one of those teams that is like a for sure automatic bid into the playoffs, if not a first round bye because they're a champion, and maybe a one-loss team, if anything. I think Clemson has everything they need to make it deep into the postseason this season. All right, we're going to finish up with some recruiting discussion on a recruit that has seemed to be showing a lot of interest in Clemson, but no offer quite yet. All right, let's finish up the show talking about Keshawn Stancil and some of the recruiting stuff that we're hearing now on the message board, specifically about, when will he ever get an offer from Clemson? He's a 4-star guy, and he's 6'3", 260-pound defensive lineman from Clayton High School in North Carolina. Currently, according to 24/7 Sports, ranked 206th nationally. And holds 30-plus offers, including Georgia, LSU, and Penn State. So he's definitely highly sought after by these big-time schools out there. Clemson has made his top 7 on social media, but he doesn't actually have an offer from the Tigers. So it seems like fans are really split right now on what's going to happen with him. Will he actually eventually get an offer? He's obviously highly graded as far as national recruits think. Is this maybe a slow play that Dabo Swinney is doing to see if he's truly committed to being a Clemson Tiger? When you look at his junior tape over on huddle.com, 63 tackles, 23 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. He plays a mixture of a lot of different positions: defensive end, defensive interior, big number 8. And he runs the ball too, and also can just absolutely wrestle you down. To me, he has a very, very strong athletic body. meets those measurables you're looking for on a defensive lineman for the college level and the Power 4 conference level. 6'3", what was it, like 230 or 260, excuse me. So you're looking at right there where he needs to be in height and weight. Can he overpower and out quick offensive linemen that are in front of him anytime he wants? I would say majority of the time he has the opportunity to out leverage the guys and outwork the guy in front of him. He has extreme quick twitch skills, which when I say quick twitch, I really mean that he's just getting off the snap very quickly. He's able to get his big body moving with a limited amount of time and into the backfield. When you look at his highlights now, they are all highlights, that's for sure. So there's nothing negative in the stuff you see over there, but it's 5-6 minutes of just domination on the line of scrimmage. And it really jumps off the screen on you. I mean, he's constantly in the backfield in 1 to 2 seconds. I would think that the high schools out there would double team him more, but he actually plays with another guy on the opposite side that's also very ruthless, number 11. So they have a big combination there at his high school. So it helps him get free and not have to deal with a lot of double teams. So maybe there's some concern there at the college level. Can he move up? Because, he kind of has a little bit of a help there on the opposite side. But he definitely has really good technique. He knows how to use his body, and he's developed some pretty good pass rush moves already. His footwork looks good. And to me, he's just a big leverage guy. I didn't see a lot of swim moves. I didn't see a lot of spin moves. I didn't see a lot of like slapping the hands or working with the upper body much, other than just out leveraging the guy in front of him. So if he's going to take you on one-on-one, really wasn't even what I would call a bull rush. It really is just kind of, he leans into you and he can kind of feel the weak side of the offensive lineman and where maybe they're off balance. And he just goes to that side almost, instinctively, just very quickly to the left or right. And really kind of like shocks an offensive lineman and just sheds them like it's really not much of a problem at all. Penetration at will for sure. And he's definitely somebody to keep a lookout. Can he eventually get an offer from the Clemson Tigers, or is Dabo Swinney slow playing this for some reason? I don't know. I know that they're looking to get another defensive interior lineman. They've offered a ton of interior defensive linemen for the 2026 recruiting class. So that they're looking to get more guys out there, and it'll add to what Nick Eason has, and continue to try to rebuild and build up that defensive line and defensive interior to be able to compete at the elite level. That's one thing that we've kind of looked at this week is with Chris Rump and Nick Eason. How are they really doing to kind of replenish what they already have? Are they living up to the standards themselves? We have a lot of criticism on Wes Goodwin, and you also have been very vocal in the comments to remind me that the criticism shouldn't just stop at Wes Goodwin. Clemson wasn't bad at stopping the run just because of Wes Goodwin. Clemson was also bad at stopping the run because of the work that, the defensive line was doing, coached by Chris Rump and Nick Eason. Those guys are very lovable guys on the outside, but they've got to get their job done too and be able to hold Clemson to a standard that is better than what they had last season. Clemson fans are already really excited about what could possibly happen in 2026 because the recruiting class is so good so far. Keshawn Stancil could just add more to that if he gets an offer. Is he like a Peter Woods? I don't know, but he definitely has a ton of upside for sure. I'm curious to see what Clemson will do. And I might ask this tomorrow morning over on 105.5 The Roar with Paul Strelo and Tiger Illustrated, just to see if there's a possibility that he's even on the radar in the next couple of months. To me, Dabo Swinney knows exactly what he's doing. He knows who he needs to get and who's going to fit in his roster in the future. So I trust him to build the right roster. He's done it for years now, building a great roster to get them into the college football playoffs and into the national championship scene. So I do trust Dabo, but I definitely want to see them land a top commit on the defensive line, because that's really where it all starts, right? If you look back at what Clemson did to become elite, they got great defensive linemen that kind of shocked the world, shocked offenses, really shut them down. And then they got a generational quarterback and built, first, second round wide receivers around them. That's kind of how I felt like Dabo Swinney did it. So defensive line, quarterback, wide receivers. That's where really Clemson got to where they are. And it all starts with that defensive line. And we want to see more commits for the 2026 class there right now. It's heating up in the recruiting trail for sure. I'm excited for it, and hopefully you are too. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft. The draft is over, but Damon Parson and Keith Sanchez are still talking about your favorite collegiate players and what they're going to do at the next level, what their rankings are, what the rumors were, and all the news around the draft and the aftermath of the draft. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, thank you so much for being a part of Locked On Clemson. And we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you at the top of the hill.